Chase, what's up, dude? How about that SGA contract, man?
Yeah. First of all, thanks for having me on. And JP, I was hanging out with Mark Stern this weekend at the Mathis, so shout out to him, DMV Live.
Yeah, man.
Buzz Williams was there, Dwayne Simpkins, watching some of the best players in the area, so that was fun.
Love that.
For SGA, yeah, you look at the terms, you're like, $285 million or whatever. That's not too much. And then you realize it's for 4 years, and you do the math, and you're like, oh, wow.
71.25
million a year.
Yeah.
We're not too far away from $100 million per year for some of these deals.
Oh, yeah. It's coming real soon.
So, based on that, I mean, just kind of looking at the math of it, who do you think is the first $100 million player? We're probably like 4 or 5 years away from that?
Cooper Flag.
Yeah, that's a great question. I haven't really thought about the couple years ahead, but what I have thought about, and the executive in the NBA pointed this out to me when Victor Wembanyama was drafted. He was like, think about how much money that guy's going to make in his career. He's probably going to top $1 billion in total salary. That doesn't include endorsements. And then now you look at Cooper Flag, he's just starting that clock. If he ends up living up to expectations, he could make more than $1 billion in player salary if he has a long career and is a star. So, we've seen some athletes reach that $1 billion mark, but usually it requires being really smart businessmen outside of their sport. Now they might be able to do that simply just by playing the sport.
An answer we couldn't figure out. When a guy makes all NBA, does it make a difference if it's first, second, or third team, the amount of money that they can make?
Like the
or does everybody get the same thing?
Yeah, there's a few awards that allow you to make what's called the Supermax designated player extension. So you just got to make all NBA. Same thing. Or that was the case for John Wall and Bradley Beal. That's why they were able to get their big money. So yeah, it's kind of an interesting dynamic because those awards are voted on by the media. So I don't currently have a award vote, but I did for a few years under this policy. And it was kind of a strange feeling when you submit that ballot. You're like, man, this could have an enormous effect on a certain player's earning power.
So, I remember Beal only made third team All-NBA once. He got the same level of Supermax as like Durant or Curry or somebody, right?
Yeah, he got the full max.
Right, that don't make much sense to me.
And well, what's crazy too is it's all about the timing. Both him and John Wall made it once, but they made it at the perfect timing when they were up for what was set to be their biggest opportunity to sign one of those massive deals. They got all NBA like just in time.
Wow.
Yeah, that's crazy. I almost wonder if there's some, who knows, man. So as we look at our Wizards, I think me and B are both really excited about Tre Johnson, and a lot of it might have been a video you posted. I watched a video online of him just raining threes for like 45 seconds. Everybody says he's the best shooter in the draft. I am really excited about that pick. I'll be honest though, when they drafted the kid Clayton from Florida, I was really excited, and they promptly traded him.
Even as a Maryland fan.
Dude, I mean, the kid's a killer. He's just a straight three-point assassin. Take us through what you thought of the draft and kind of what, if anything, we're expecting here in free agency for the Wiz.
Well, I thought the draft worked out really well for the Wizards in the sense that Tre Johnson was there at 6. I didn't think he was going to be. And usually my instincts have proven pretty good over the years when I see a guy who, that guy's not going to make it out of the top 5. And I went on a lot of radio shows in this town saying I think he'd be perfect for the Wizards. I just don't think he'll be there at 6. But Ace Bailey unexpectedly went 5th. That paved the way for Tre Johnson to fall to 6. And I think he fits in perfectly what the Wizards needed long term, which is offense and shooting. They were 30th in offense last year. They weren't much better defensively, but you can sort of see where they're going defensively because some of the draft picks they've made with Bilal Coulibaly and Alex Sarr, they hadn't really brought in someone with this much production on the offensive side who has this high of a ceiling long term, in my opinion. I mean, I think he's not only the best shooter in this draft, but probably one of the best prospects as a outside shooter that we've seen come into the draft in the last several years. Because if you really break down his shooting, he basically has zero weaknesses. I mean, he's extremely good from the corners, half court, transition, off the catch, off the dribble. What impressed me the most is what he shot from NBA range last year, which of course is a little bit beyond the college 3-point line. just under 40% on 200 attempts. So this is a guy who's not going to have to make that adjustment that a lot of young guys have to make. You hear it just about every year from rookies. They're like, yeah, it doesn't seem like a big difference, but it is in terms of muscle memory and the strength that you have to build to be able to shoot from that range, especially late in games if you played a lot of minutes. He's kind of already there. So I think his shooting's going to translate very quickly.
Chase, you're around it and you cover it on a consistent basis. Are they closer than what we may think? Because on the outside looking in, they seem to be a little far away. But you see them adding these pieces over the last 2 to 3 years now. And are they closer than what we think?
I think yes and no. I don't think they're close to contending, and GM Will Dawkins has said that on the record. He said at the end of last season. But what I would say, now that the Wizards are undergoing this rebuild, I've gone back and studied some of the rebuilds that have worked. And usually they don't work overnight. It's not very quick. But what you realize in hindsight is that some of the pieces that ended up carrying them to contention were collected early on, and maybe you didn't realize they were there. Like, for instance, comparing the timelines, like where the Wizards are in their rebuild compared to last time, they already had John Wall and Bradley Beal on the roster. They had just drafted Bradley Beal. The Oklahoma City Thunder, who just won a title, like at this point in their rebuild, they had just drafted Chet Holmgren and Jalen Williams. The Rockets already had Alperen Şengün and Tari Eason. So I think you got to get these young guys in your program, and it takes them a long time to develop. But odds are, if the Wizards are contending, 2 years from now, the core of that team is already on the roster, and we should see them playing together in the Summer League, which is going to make the games out in Las Vegas very exciting.
You get to go out there for that?
Oh, yeah. Every year. Vegas in July.
I might have to come out there and hang out with you.
You've been talking about man. You need a Vegas trip, B.
I need a Vegas trip, dog. Seriously. But let me ask you this, welcome. But so I understand when you say contending, but I'm at least winning. Okay, when is that going to happen? Because listen, if you start winning now, at least you give the fan base something to pull for. But if you're just losing and then all of a sudden you say you're going to be contending in a certain amount of years, you make people kind of turn it off.
Yeah, well, I mean, they're going into year 3 under the new front office, and I think they are very well aware that after this season, their first-round pick is top 8 protected. It's still tied to the John Wall, Russell Westbrook trade. So what that means is if they got the 9th, 10th pick, anything later than that, they'd have to forfeit their first-round pick. So that is something to keep in mind. But this team now has 8 first-round picks over the last 3 years. A couple of them were acquired via trade. So they've got a lot of young players on the team. And I think when you have a quantity of young players like that, then you are just increasing the odds that you're going to hit on 1 or 2 of them. And so with so many young guys, their ceilings being high, you just never know when someone could make a pretty significant leap forward. And all it would take is 2 or 3 to really change the big picture outlook for this team. Amen Thompson last year for the Rockets or Dyson Daniels for the Hawks. Those guys took enormous leaps forward, and all of a sudden, the picture changes. So you can't rule that out for the Wizards. They've got a lot of young guys, and I think that's what they're banking on. It's just the quantity of young players. And their hope is that some collection of them will take a step forward next season. And whether it's the playoffs after this coming year, maybe it could set the stage for success the season after that.
Talking with our friend Chase Hughes here on the Rude Guest Hotline. Rude makes the most reliable HVAC products in the DMV. You can give Chase a follow at Chase DC Sports. You can read and watch all of his work at monumentalsportsnetwork.com. Covering the Wizards, does it all. Going to go out to Vegas for Summer League here in a couple weeks. Tell us about the other first rounder, the kid Riley. One thing that's obvious is they like positional size, and what Riley has that Clayton rather didn't in the trade back is size. I mean, is he a legit 6'8", but still a shooter? Tell us about this young man.
Yeah, so he's 6'8.5" without shoes. So he's going to be like about 6'10" on the court as a wing. And so he's got the size, and he's also got the motor. He plays with a lot of energy. And he showed some skill last year, I think, offensively. But this is really about, I think, just the size, the athleticism, and the intangibles, because he was the top 10 recruit coming out of high school. And he was the Big Ten Sixth Man of the Year, so he was pretty productive last year. But he didn't exactly light the world on fire. And so I think what the Wizards are banking on is, maybe 3 years from now, he can realize that potential and become a diamond in the rough. And, when I think about him as a prospect, I think about just something that sort of crystallized for me the last few years watching the NBA. And that is, if you're bigger and more aggressive than the guy guarding you, then oftentimes you're going to be tough to stop. And I think that goes underrated for some guys who are much bigger than him, but Nikola Jokic, Alperen Şengün. I would put Luka Doncic in this conversation. Some guys that may not, wow you with their athleticism. They're not jumping very high. They're not playing above the rim, but they're bigger and they're more aggressive than everyone who guards them. So they're a matchup nightmare.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Will Riley could tap into that and maybe be a guy who, you just don't want to put a smaller player on because he's going to make them pay for it.
So a little bit of breaking news. I don't know if you saw this because you're on the phone with us. Excuse me. Miles Turner just signed with the Bucks.
Mm-hmm.
Considering Tatum's hurt, Halliburton's hurt, Giannis isn't. Does that one keep Giannis in Milwaukee, and two, are they kind of the favorite in the East now?
Yeah, that's a surprise. Rick Carlisle and the Pacers were very clear that they wanted to re-sign him. And then you see Brook Lopez leave, I believe, for the Clippers. So that sort of leaves a hole in the front court of the Milwaukee Bucks, and they get a guy who's younger who can do a lot of the same things, which is shoot threes, block shots. Didn't have a great NBA Finals, but had a great postseason overall. So yeah, that I think is I think what you said is very accurate about the Eastern Conference. Whether they're the favorites, I might stop short of that. I think Cleveland still is due some respect. I think they got some moves up their sleeve. New York is good, but this certainly elevates Milwaukee despite the Damian Lillard injury. We'll see if he can come back in time to play in the playoffs. But they got Giannis, they got Miles Turner, a borderline all-star. That's not bad.
Is that move up Cleveland sleeves as the initials LJ?
Yeah. Maybe there'd be two LJs in that trade. I feel like it might be a package deal.
How serious is any of the LeBron talk moving?
Well, I think it's pretty serious. I would point to Rich Paul's statement that he gave ESPN saying, we enjoyed our time here. But essentially he wants to hear more about the direction because he wants to compete for a championship. So, I don't think those guys do anything by accident. I think they're pretty calculated. Rich Paul's pretty smart. He's been doing this for a long time. So that to me said a lot about what their intentions are. But it's been kind of a slow start to free agency and on the trade front. And, Shams Charania of ESPN was saying he thinks it's going to be a blockbuster trade period. And we haven't seen that yet. Certainly a LeBron James deal would qualify as a blockbuster.
Yes, indeed.
You actually think he'll get moved again? And does Bronny have to come with him?
That's the other LJ I was referring to. Yes.
Yeah.
I would imagine so. Now, I don't know where they would go. I've seen some of the speculation about Cleveland. That'd be a cool, full circle moment, certainly. And Cleveland is really good already, but they fell short in the playoffs. They can't get out of the second round. So, the Eastern Conference is wide open. I feel like there are a few teams that he could definitely take to the next level if he went east.
I did want to ask you just quickly while we have you, kind of where are you on the RFK Stadium stuff?
I thought it was pretty likely to happen, and now I keep seeing these interviews and comments from people like you know much more than me about maybe there being some doubts. So I feel like it'll still get done. It seems like there's a lot of momentum pointing towards the deal, and sometimes leverage. You can never really tell who's telling the truth. So I'm hopeful that it will get done because, I go to FedEx once a year. And I usually have fun when I go, but as I understand, it gets a lot better than that if you travel around the country to different NFL stadiums as you guys have.
Mm-hmm.
For sure. Damn, more from Shams here, Chase. He's saying the Bucks are waiving Dame.
Wow.
And that's how they're making space for the Miles Turner deal. Damn.
Oof.
Yeah,
they traded for Dame thinking that was the move to get him to the, you know what I mean?
He tore the Achilles.
Oh, yeah. And I thought it was a perfect fit when they did it. Hopefully Dame can get back to 100%, man. I love watching that guy play. Hopefully this is not the final chapter for him.
This Achilles thing, is that something they're not focusing on? Because there's been a lot of Achilles tears in the last couple of years, 3-4 years with the NBA.
No, it's definitely something they're focusing on. Adam Silver, the commissioner, said that the other day. He was interviewed during the draft by ESPN. And he said they're taking a close look at it. They've got a team of experts. Obviously, you got to try to prevent these injuries. Thankfully, some players have come back from it successfully. Kevin Durant is a great example, Breanna Stewart in the WNBA, but it's still such a catastrophic injury. It doesn't offer any guarantees. And now you've got Tyrese Halliburton, Jason Tatum, Damian Lillard, a good collection of star players that move the needle in terms of rating. So I think it's pretty clear they got to figure something out. I don't know what the answer is, but they're hopeful to find it.
I tell you what, some of these damn shoes that are coming out, the shoes look good, but you better make sure they can deal with the different cuts and all and the surface that they're on.
Dude, I heard this on Van Pelt's podcast. This was crazy to me. 3 dudes that wear 0 blew out their Achilles.
Yeah.
Halliburton, Tatum, and Dame. Like, that's just bizarre.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's just become a much more popular number nowadays because of Gilbert Arenas.
Damn right. All right, Chase, we're going to actually open the phones. We're all going to give our answer to this when we return, but I want to ask you a question here. Obviously, it's not imminent, right? But if you had to guess, who is the next Wizard to get a Supermax contract?
If I had to guess, I would say Bub Carrington. I think of the young guys, he's shown the most, particularly in the offensive end. He's the most skilled young guy they have. And I think the ceiling's pretty high. People kind of discount it because of the athleticism. Maybe he's not an explosive above the rim athlete, but I would point to the NBA Finals and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Tyrese Halliburton and say that is the modern NBA guard who can score at all 3 levels, not necessarily dunk on somebody. So I think he fits that mold. Obviously, Supermax, he's got a long way to go, but that would be my guess.
Wow. All right. One vote, Bub. Chase, thank you for making time, bro.
Chase,
really appreciate it.
Brother.